In my previous life, my wife suddenly suffered a heart attack and was rushed to the hospital by a colleague. By the time I arrived, she was already gone. The shock was so overwhelming that I collapsed. When I regained consciousness, I was told that my wife had already been cremated. There was no time to grieve, as debt collectors soon arrived at my door. That's when I learned that my wife had accumulated millions in loans, and I was the sole heir according to her will. 10 years later, I was hunched over, scavenging on the streets. But to my shock, I saw my wife, who was supposed to be dead, driving a luxury car, laughing with her first love. She even smiled at me and tossed me a $100 bill, thanking me for my efforts. My body, worn out from years of struggle, gave in to anger and exhaustion, and I collapsed from the intensity of it all. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day my wife had her heart attack. Chapter 1. "Brother-in-law, you need to control your emotions and take care of yourself," said Chloe Anderson, my wife's best friend and attending physician, with an air of regret. "We did everything we could to save her, but Sister Olivia Parker is gone." Her words, full of medical terms I didn't quite understand, hit me like a punch to the gut. She helped me sit down on the sofa. "You'd better not look," she added softly. "I'm afraid it might be too much for you." I stared at my reflection in the glass across from me. I looked youthful, with no visible signs of the wear and tear from years of hard labor. After a few deep breaths, the reality hit me. I had been reborn into my past life. When I first heard about Olivia Parker's heart attack, I rushed to the hospital, running 3 red lights in my desperate hurry. Yet I arrived just a moment too late. Holding her death certificate in my hands, I was filled with endless regret. I kept banging my head against the wall, blaming myself for not being there, for not taking her to work myself. The grief might have been too much, or maybe it was the force of my self-blame, but I fainted in the hospital. When I woke up, Olivia Parker had already been cremated, leaving behind only a small urn of ashes. I couldn't bear it, refusing to eat or drink. But soon, a group of lawyers arrived, sent by major loan companies. That's when I learned that I was the sole heir in Olivia Parker's will. Struggling to come to terms with it all, I found out that Olivia Parker's company had been sold by my mother-in-law, Eleanor Davis, leaving me with millions in debt. The house was soon auctioned off by the court, and I had nowhere to go. When I turned to Eleanor Davis for help, she refused to even see me. The days that followed were a blur of hardship. I ended up living in a small shed, with debt collectors knocking on my door almost daily. I had to work 4 jobs just to get by, but after all the court rulings, I could barely make ends meet. Illnesses came, but I had no means of getting treatment. Then, one day, as I was collecting trash, I saw her, Olivia Parker, who had been dead for 10 years. She was behind the wheel of a luxury car, laughing with her first love. I rushed up to her, unable to believe my eyes. She didn't try to hide who she was. She mocked me, telling me I looked like I was 70 when I was only 40, and threw me a $100 bill, thanking me for the past decade of efforts. I was furious, my body already worn from years of struggle, and I died on the spot from rage. Olivia Parker drove away without a second glance, as if nothing had happened. Thinking back, I made a decision. In my past life, you faked your death. This time, I will make sure you stay dead. Chapter 2. Chloe Anderson kept insisting that I drink water, but I regained my senses just in time and refused. I remembered that in my previous life, I had fainted after drinking this same glass of water. I was almost certain that it had been laced with something, meant to make me miss Olivia Parker's cremation. I set the glass down and walked over to Olivia Parker's bedside, ignoring Chloe Anderson's protests. When I lifted the sheet, I saw that Olivia Parker's face was still rosy and her breathing steady. In my previous life, I had been too grief-stricken and naive to notice these signs. I raised my hand and slapped Olivia Parker's face hard. She didn't stir, clearly sedated to prevent me from discovering the truth. This actually worked to my advantage. Chloe Anderson screamed, horrified, thinking I had realized that Olivia Parker was pretending to be dead. "Brother-in-law, you can't be so harsh!" Chloe Anderson exclaimed, her voice breaking. Even if you're angry, we can explain everything. The anger from my past life surged within me. I didn't stop hitting Olivia Parker, my frustration building. I told you not to stay up late for a checkup. Why didn't you listen? Now you've left me all alone, I yelled. Chloe Anderson, confused, thought I hadn't figured it out yet, believing that I was simply venting my grief through my actions. But seeing how forcefully I was striking Olivia Parker's body, she began to worry. Brother-in-law, take it easy. Sister Olivia Parker will feel pain, she stammered. I stopped, looking at her as if she were completely foolish. Do newly dead people feel pain? I asked, my tone mocking. Chloe Anderson swallowed hard, regretting her words, and forced a smile. No, She couldn't finish her sentence. Not wanting to waste more time arguing with her, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Yes, I'd like to donate organs. The person just passed away. Come quickly. Chloe Anderson tried to stop me, but due to her position, she simply took out her own phone and sent a message. Chapter 3. The organ donation team arrived within minutes. I put on a sorrowful expression, telling them that my wife had always been a kind person. Her sudden death had shocked everyone. I hope her life can continue by saving more people, the doctor from the donation office said, shaking my hand firmly. I thank you on behalf of the families who will benefit. May I ask which organs you would like to donate? I glanced over at Chloe Anderson and sighed. Olivia Parker died from a sudden heart attack, I said, feeling conflicted. I'm not sure which organs can still be donated, but you can perform an autopsy. If there are no usable organs, then donate her body to medical research. Chloe Anderson stepped in front of the bed, blocking me. No, brother-in-law. Olivia Parker didn't want to donate her organs. She told me this before. We have to respect her wishes. I wiped away my tears and looked at her calmly. Chloe Anderson, I am Olivia Parker's husband, and I have the right to make this decision. You and Olivia Parker were close, but you have no blood ties to her. We both know who has the final say here. Besides, every minute you waste means more organs will deteriorate. You're a doctor too, don't you want to save lives? Yes, Dr. Chloe Anderson, please step aside, the organ donation staff echoed. Chloe Anderson refused to budge. I just contacted Eleanor Davis. You should at least let her see Olivia Parker one last time, she said, still standing in the way. I nodded in agreement, though my mind was elsewhere. I never intended to donate Olivia Parker's organs because I knew that once her chest was opened, her fake death would be exposed. My goal wasn't to reveal her deception. Rather, I wanted to make her play dead a reality. This entire act was a calculated move to expose Victor Brooks or possibly Eleanor Davis. I wanted them to see Olivia Parker die, helpless to do anything to prevent it. That would serve as evidence if they ever tried to frame me again. Chapter 4. Eleanor Davis rushed in, her hair still in curlers, clearly fresh from the salon. She sighed in relief when she saw Olivia Parker still lying intact on the bed. Then, without warning, she slapped me across the face. What's wrong with you? What bad luck did Olivia Parker have to marry someone like you? My daughter's dead, and now you want to dissect her. If anyone dares to touch a hair on my daughter's head today, I'll kill their entire family. Eleanor Davis forcefully drove the organ donation staff away. No donations, go harm someone else, she yelled. Reluctantly, the staff left, and Chloe Anderson let out a sigh of relief, covering Olivia Parker with a white cloth. Eleanor Davis collapsed onto the sofa, continuing her tirade. You're worthless. Your wife's dead, and instead of mourning her, you want to use her for medical research? If you want to be a good person, donate yourself. Go ahead and die now, and I'll donate all of you. Holding my face, I sighed deeply. Mom, I'm sorry. I was just trying to... Before I could finish, Eleanor Davis slapped me again. Don't even think about it. Now go. I'll take my daughter to the crematorium later. I fell silent, kneeling humbly on the floor. I handed Eleanor Davis the water that Chloe Anderson had brought. Without thinking, Eleanor Davis drank it in one gulp, her mouth dry from all the shouting. Chloe Anderson didn't have time to stop her. Minutes later, Eleanor Davis fell asleep. Cold sweat broke out on Chloe Anderson's face as she stammered, Brother-in-law, you're not planning to donate organs again, are you? Chapter 5. I shook my head, laying Eleanor Davis flat on the sofa. Of course not. Mom said no, so I won't continue. Chloe Anderson sighed in relief, but then she quickly added, But Wu, suddenly fainting isn't a good sign. You should take her to the emergency room quickly. I'll handle Sister Olivia Parker's cremation myself. No, how can I let you do that? You're a doctor. You should take care of Mom while I take care of the cremation, I replied calmly, already arranging for the crematorium staff to come immediately. Chloe Anderson tried to protest. There's no rush with the cremation. Let's wait until Eleanor Davis wakes up. Sister Olivia Parker isn't going anywhere, I answered firmly. Chloe Anderson, Olivia Parker is already dead. The living are more important than the dead. You and Olivia Parker were like sisters, but today you're not even sad. You keep saying strange things. What exactly do you want? Frantic, Chloe Anderson scrambled like a cat on a hot tin roof, desperately trying to wake Eleanor Davis. But Eleanor Davis remained unconscious. By the time the crematorium staff arrived to take Olivia Parker, Chloe Anderson couldn't contain herself anymore. She grabbed my sleeve, her voice hoarse. Brother-in-law, I think I just saw Sister Olivia Parker move. Let's try to save her. I held up the death certificate in front of her. Chloe Anderson, think carefully before you speak. Have you considered the consequences if Olivia Parker is actually alive? What would the hospital be responsible for? And what about you? This would be considered murder, a reckless disregard for human life. I don't know if the hospital could continue operating, but you would definitely go to prison. So think again. Did you really see Olivia Parker move? Chloe Anderson was at her wit's end, unable to refute me. I sneered and shook off her hand, following the crematorium's car as it drove away. Chloe Anderson let out a cry and immediately started making phone calls. Chapter 6. As I looked at Olivia Parker lying on the stretcher, I couldn't help but laugh. Even though 10 years had passed, her face was almost unchanged, with hardly any signs of aging. I threw myself in front of the car, desperate to recognize her, to see if it was really Olivia Parker, and to express the longing I had carried for all those years. Olivia Parker squinted her eyes at me, taking her time before barely recognizing who I was. It's you, she laughed. How is it possible that after just 10 years, you look older than my grandfather? At that moment, my voice was hoarse, and I was hunched over, definitely not resembling a 50-year-old. Stammering, I asked, You weren't dead? Olivia Parker and Victor Brooks, who sat beside her, burst into laughter. I faked my death to get rid of you, she said, finishing her sentence before I could even react. What more was there for me to understand? If she had asked for a divorce directly, I couldn't have refused. But that would have meant dividing her assets with me and tarnishing her reputation as a cheating woman. Faking her death, however, left me with the debt and allowed her to transfer everything into her name while starting a new life with Victor Brooks under a new identity. I was so angry I couldn't speak, while Olivia Parker seemed eager to continue mocking me. Actually, I could hear you talking in the hospital. I still remember how you cried. I'm so curious how a man can cry like a goose. It's really funny. Ha ha ha. Her mocking laughter rang in my ears. I clutched my chest, my heart racing, and collapsed. Victor Brooks shouted, Wife, she's not trying to scam us, is she? Let's go. Olivia Parker, unfazed, shouted about bad luck and drove away, not caring whether I lived or died. My last memory was watching the car drive off, before everything went dark. Chapter 7. I was still lost in painful memories when I noticed that Olivia Parker's fingers seemed to twitch slightly. It looked like she had realized she was about to be cremated and that the anesthesia was starting to wear off, causing her to begin waking up. I urged the driver to speed up. Please, hurry. My mother-in-law is trying to take my wife's body to donate it. I just want her to leave and come back whole. The driver acknowledged my request and stepped on the gas, increasing speed significantly. I leaned down over Olivia Parker's chest, listening to her steady heartbeat, and said everything I hadn't had the chance to say in my previous life. I know you're not dead. I also know you've been cheating on me, and you staged this whole act to run away with Victor Brooks, leaving me with all the debts. But I don't hate you. I've decided to respect your wish. Since you want to die, I'll make sure you're cremated as quickly as possible. I paused for a moment, then continued, I know you can hear me now, but I'm not sure if you can feel pain. I hope you can, so you can experience the cremation yourself. After all, you might be the first person to be cremated alive. You might wonder why I'm doing this or how I know all of this, I said coldly. But it doesn't matter now. I've lived through this day before, in my previous life. I believed you when you said you were dead, and I lived a miserable life because of it. So don't blame me. You owe me this. Olivia Parker's fingers trembled slightly, but she couldn't move. Tears started streaming down her face. I wiped them away. You'll have plenty of time to cry once you're in the crematorium, I said coldly, as my phone kept ringing non-stop. It was Chloe Anderson and Eleanor Davis calling, but right now, I was just a grieving man who had lost his wife and had no intention of answering their calls. Chapter 8. Thanks to the driver's speeding, we arrived at the crematorium in 20 minutes, a trip that usually took half an hour. However, there were many people there that day, and it would be at least an hour before it was Olivia Parker's turn. I paced around frantically until I found the person in charge. My wife died suddenly of a heart attack, and my mother-in-law fainted when she heard the news. She's now being resuscitated at the hospital, and I need to get back to her. Please let me cremate my wife first. I don't want my mother-in-law to suffer anymore. The crematorium staff had never encountered someone wanting to cut in line for cremation. He hesitated. I understand you're in a hurry, but others have been waiting too. It wouldn't be fair to let you cut in line. Despite his words, he suddenly extended his hand, clearly asking for money. Knowing time was of the essence, I quickly took out my phone and transferred him $200,000. Please help me out. I'm an orphan, and my wife and mother-in-law have been very good to me. I can't lose my mother-in-law, too. With the added incentive, Olivia Parker successfully cut the line, and her body was moved into the cremation chamber within 10 minutes. Just as the staff was about to press the incineration button, I stopped him. I couldn't let him become an accomplice in this, and I wanted to take my revenge personally. After a brief but intense exchange, the staff agreed to let me press the button. At that moment, I heard Eleanor Davis and Chloe Anderson's frantic voices coming from the entrance. Stop! Stop! Don't cremate her! Eleanor Davis, possibly still under the influence of medication or the shock, collapsed at the entrance. Stop! Bring my daughter out! Chloe Anderson grabbed my hand as I was about to press the incineration button. Brother-in-law, wait! I have something to say to Olivia Parker! Eleanor Davis, panting heavily, shouted. Get out! I won't let you cremate my daughter! I'll do it myself! You take her out! At this critical moment, they still wanted to continue with their fake death plan. I knelt down and spoke sorrowfully. Mom, Olivia Parker is gone. Let her rest in peace. I'm Olivia Parker's husband, and I won't leave. Our argument had drawn the attention of many onlookers. The staff, puzzled, said, What kind of tragic play is this? The crematorium is no place for nonsense. He moved to press the incineration button again, but Chloe Anderson and Eleanor Davis, desperate, lunged forward to stop him. Their faces were twisted with desperation. The staff, startled, instinctively stepped aside. Chloe Anderson and Eleanor Davis, unable to stop their momentum, fell onto the button, and in an instant, flames engulfed Olivia Parker's body. Chapter 9. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the room, followed by another from Chloe Anderson and Eleanor Davis. Everyone turned to look at them, but I kept my eyes fixed on the crematorium. It was clear that the anesthesia had completely worn off Olivia Parker by now. I caught a glimpse of her mouth twitching open and her hand stretching out, but the noise from the chaos outside was too overwhelming for anyone to notice. It wasn't until a minute passed that the crowd finally shifted their attention back to the crematorium. The staff, pointing at the chamber in astonishment, whispered in disbelief. I've never seen a hand reach up like that. It really looks like she's alive. Yeah, usually, there's just a slight muscle twitch. If it weren't daytime, I might think it's a ghost, another staff member muttered. I wiped away non-existent tears, forcing myself to maintain a pitiful expression while trying not to let my lips curl into a smirk. My wife loved her mother-in-law so much, I said, my voice faltering. She must have heard her voice and tried to sit up just to see her one last time. I wiped my eyes, keeping the act going, then turned to the crematorium. Rest in peace, my dear wife. Don't worry about anything. I will take care of Mom and ensure she joins you soon. Just as I finished speaking, Olivia Parker's hand dropped back down, seemingly lifeless. I felt a deep sense of relief, as though the burdens of my past life had finally disappeared. Ignoring the collapsed Eleanor Davis, Chloe Anderson staggered toward the crematorium, horrified by what she saw. In a panic, she repeatedly pressed the incineration button. "Why won't the fire stop? Put it out!" she cried out, nearly frantic. Seeing such a distraught family member for the first time, the staff quickly intervened, pushing Chloe Anderson aside. "We understand you're grieving, but the dead cannot come back to life. Acting out like this won't bring her peace." "That's right," another staff member chimed in. "This is an automated crematorium. Once it starts, it has to burn completely before we can open it again. Please, calm down." Chapter 10. Chloe Anderson, now as pale as a ghost, collapsed to the floor, muttering in disbelief. "It's over. It's all over." She turned her gaze toward me, her eyes filled with accusation. "Brother-in-law, why didn't you answer your phone when we called?" I sighed deeply, feeling exhausted. I was too consumed by grief to answer. All I could focus on was what to do now that Olivia Parker was gone. Besides, cremation after death is a standard procedure. Why try to stop it? Eleanor Davis, still in disbelief, crawled toward me. "You bastard! You killed my daughter! Give her life back!" I sighed once more but didn't help Eleanor Davis up. Instead, I held the death certificate up to her. "Mom, I know you're upset, but Olivia Parker's death has nothing to do with me. She died of a sudden heart attack, not because of anything I did. If you don't believe me, ask Chloe Anderson. She's the one who tried to save Olivia Parker and issued the death certificate, right, Chloe Anderson?" I turned to look at Chloe Anderson. She was silent, unsure how to respond. Should she deny that Olivia Parker was dead? Then how did the death certificate come about? If she confirmed Olivia Parker was dead, Eleanor Davis wouldn't accept it. Seeing this, Eleanor Davis suddenly grabbed Chloe Anderson by the throat. "It's you! You killed my daughter! She was alive and you gave her a death certificate! Now she's been cremated! This is all your fault!" Shocked, I covered my mouth, my mind racing. "What, Mom? What are you saying? Olivia Parker wasn't dead?" I turned back to the crematorium, my mind spinning. No wonder I thought I saw her fingers move when she was entering the chamber. I had dismissed it as my imagination. But it was real. Chapter 11. Upon hearing my words, Chloe Anderson frantically tugged at her hair. Then, after a long pause, spoke. "It's true. Olivia Parker isn't dead. She was just anesthetized. If you'd waited a few more minutes, she would have woken up." I could barely believe what I was hearing. "What do you mean? Olivia Parker was cremated while alive and conscious?" The statement hung in the air like a death sentence, and the room was plunged into stunned silence. The staff's faces turned pale as they murmured among themselves. No wonder. Right after the fire started, she suddenly reached out her hand. My God, this is murder. At hearing this, Eleanor Davis's face went blank, and she fainted. I immediately reacted, slapping Chloe Anderson hard across the face. "Chloe Anderson, are you out of your mind? How could you joke about something like this? My wife is dead, and you're making up lies?" Chloe Anderson, stunned by the slap, stammered, "I'm not lying." I sneered at her. "Not lying? Then explain to me why my wife was anesthetized. Why did you issue a death certificate if she wasn't dead? If you're going to lie, at least make it believable." Chloe Anderson was speechless, and the staff, hearing the commotion, began to assume she was joking and returned to their work. As Olivia Parker's cremation continued, I stormed out of the crematorium with her ashes. Before leaving, I turned to Chloe Anderson and said, "You scared Mom into fainting for no reason. You take her to the hospital." It wasn't that I didn't want to stay and witness Eleanor Davis's reaction when she regained consciousness, but I had far more pressing matters to deal with. This is the continuation with the names replaced. Let me know if you'd like to continue or need any further adjustments. V. Scazali. Next programma Chat GPT Scazala. Here's the next part with the names replaced. Chapter 12. I placed Olivia Parker's ashes prominently in the living room, then quickly contacted a lawyer to begin the process of inheriting Olivia Parker's company and estate. In my previous life, I had been too grief-stricken, and by the time I came to my senses, the company was gone. This time, if I didn't act fast, Eleanor Davis would seize control once she woke up. I couldn't waste my second chance. After completing the paperwork, I reflected on the millions in debt. Knowing Olivia Parker, she wouldn't have given all that money to Victor Brooks or Eleanor Davis. But after checking thoroughly, there was no trace of that money in her name. She must have hidden it. Following her spending records, I found a garage she had rented. There, I discovered stacks of cash stashed away. I quickly contacted the bank and loan companies, using the money to pay off part of the interest and settle the loans. With everything in order, I lay back on the sofa, holding a glass of red wine, and gazed at Olivia Parker's photo on the wall. "Thank you, my dear wife," I said quietly, a sense of resolve settling over me. Now it's my turn. I now had money, a house, and a company free of debts. I was set to live a carefree life. Even better than in my previous existence, I drank heavily and passed out on the sofa. The next morning, I was awakened by a knock on the door. Rubbing my aching head, I reluctantly opened it. On the doorstep stood Chloe Anderson and Eleanor Davis, accompanied by a man who looked a few years older. It was Victor Brooks, looking furious, holding a 6- or 7-year-old boy who looked strikingly like Olivia Parker. Was this her child from before our marriage? No wonder Olivia Parker refused to have children after we married. She had already had one with her first love. The three of them looked sorrowful, dark circles under their eyes, likely from several sleepless nights. Behind them, a few police officers stood silently, observing the scene. Chapter 13. Eleanor Davis walked into the house, her finger pointed accusingly at me. "Officer, this man cremated my daughter alive. Arrest him and cremate him too so he can experience what it feels like." I had expected some sort of drama, but I hadn't anticipated it would come so quickly. I sighed. "Mom, can you stop making jokes like this? It's not the time." I pulled out the death certificate. "Officer, here is my wife's death certificate. My mom is struggling to cope with the loss and might be having some mental issues." The officer glanced at the death certificate. "This seems in order." I sighed again, trying to keep my composure. "My wife and I were married for 3 years. Our relationship was strong. When she passed away, I couldn't let her body decay, so I had her cremated immediately. Was that wrong?" Eleanor Davis clutched her chest dramatically. "You're lying! My daughter hated you. If Victor Brooks hadn't been unable to divorce at the time, Olivia Parker would never have married you. She did it out of spite. You cremated her early just to take her inheritance and the company. I confirmed it with the company yesterday. What else do you have to say for yourself?" I stared at her, my eyes misty. "Mom, you can insult me, but my love for Olivia Parker was real. If we didn't care for each other, why would she make me the sole heir of her estate?" Eleanor Davis was momentarily speechless, so I pressed on. "You say Olivia Parker was still alive. How could such a large hospital fail to determine if someone is alive or dead? Chloe Anderson herself told me that Olivia Parker was brain dead and her heart had stopped. What living person has that condition?" Chapter 14. Eleanor Davis turned to Chloe Anderson, signaling for her to speak, but Chloe Anderson kept her head down, clearly conflicted. If she admitted that the death certificate was fake, the consequences would be severe. It was safer to stick with the lie. The situation was at a standstill. Victor Brooks tugged at Eleanor Davis's sleeve, and she stopped talking. Victor Brooks sighed deeply. "Olivia Parker really wasn't dead. I'm Olivia Parker's boyfriend. We broke up years ago due to a misunderstanding, and she married you out of spite. I've recently divorced, and I came with my child to find Olivia Parker. She realized she still loved me and wanted to fake her death to leave you. But you cremated her." Victor Brooks hesitated before continuing. "But don't blame Olivia Parker. She did it to protect you. She was a kind person. Now that she's gone, we just hope you can accept this child and give him the inheritance he deserves." I took a sip of water and mimicked Eleanor Davis's tone. "You're lying." Then I turned to Eleanor Davis, speaking in a sadder tone. Mom, I know you didn't get along with Olivia Parker. She didn't leave you anything in her will, so you brought this child here to frame Olivia Parker and claim her inheritance. Isn't that right? Eleanor Davis, almost driven to madness by my words, restrained herself, only holding back for the sake of money. You're lying. I got along just fine with Olivia Parker. This is her child, I'm sure of it. I pulled out Olivia Parker's will. Mom, why are you lying? If you got along with Olivia Parker, why isn't your name in her will? Why did she leave everything to me? Eleanor Davis was speechless. Victor Brooks hesitated, not knowing how to explain the fact that Olivia Parker had made me the heir in order to saddle me with her debts. Chapter 15. I glanced at the child standing behind Victor Brooks and smirked inwardly. So this was the real reason my wife had suddenly stopped pretending to be a loving wife for 3 years. Her first love and child had returned. However, I didn't feel any sadness. After all, I had already died once. I said calmly, "You claim this child is Olivia Parker's? Then please provide proof, such as a legally recognized paternity test or a birth certificate." Victor Brooks and Eleanor Davis were taken aback. "There's no paternity test because the child was born at home, so there's no birth certificate," Victor Brooks stammered, his voice defensive. "But he is Olivia Parker's child." I waved my hand dismissively. "Officer, do you see what's happening here? They know my wife has already been cremated and have brought a child to claim the inheritance. They're even falsely accusing me of cremating my wife alive. Their statements are completely contradictory." Eleanor Davis, now anxious, said, "I can take a DNA test with the child to prove I'm his grandmother, which would indirectly prove that he's Olivia Parker's child." The officer shook his head. "That won't suffice. It only proves you're related to the child, but it doesn't establish the relationship between the child and Olivia Parker. Even if it did, it wouldn't prove that Olivia Parker was your only child." I struggled to contain my laughter. Part of the reason I had insisted on cremating Olivia Parker quickly was to avoid situations like this. It turned out to be the right move. Victor Brooks and Eleanor Davis exchanged glances, and Victor Brooks gritted his teeth. "It doesn't matter whose child he is. Olivia Parker wasn't dead. He cremated her alive. He's a murderer. He shouldn't inherit Olivia Parker's estate." Victor Brooks was right about that, but he needed to prove I was a murderer first. Chapter 16. I suddenly turned to Chloe Anderson. "Chloe Anderson, tell us, was Olivia Parker dead or alive? You're a doctor with a family. Think carefully before you speak. You may not remember, but I do. It was you and Mom who pressed the incineration button. If Olivia Parker was alive, then you two are the murderers." I twisted their earlier attempt to stop the cremation into a deliberate action to press the button, making it seem like they had intended it all along. Before Eleanor Davis could even call me a liar, Chloe Anderson gritted her teeth, avoiding both Eleanor Davis's and Victor Brooks's gaze. "She was really dead," she muttered, her voice wavering. But Victor Brooks raised his phone, his expression smug. "I suspected you'd lie, so I brought evidence." Victor Brooks played a video on his phone. It showed him, Chloe Anderson, Eleanor Davis, and Olivia Parker sitting on a couch, discussing the fake death plan. Olivia Parker's voice, as disgustingly familiar as it had been in my previous life, came from the phone. "I'll get anesthetized. You find a way to knock out my husband and tell him I've been cremated. I'll give you $1 million once it's done." The video wasn't complete. It didn't show the part where they discussed how they would make me shoulder the debts. Chloe Anderson crouched down, at a loss for words. I didn't," she stammered. Victor Brooks seemed relieved. "I wasn't lying. You killed Olivia Parker, so you should go to jail. The inheritance should go to Auntie." I feigned fear, my emotions stirring as I pretended to be heartbroken. I spoke in a trembling voice. "Officer, I want to report them. These 3 planned my wife's fake death without telling me. I was devastated and didn't realize she was alive. They knew I planned to donate her organs and cremate her, but they didn't tell me she wasn't dead. They did this on purpose to make sure I unknowingly cremated my wife. And now, they're here to claim the inheritance." Chapter 17. I turned to Eleanor Davis and Victor Brooks, asking, "I knew my wife had passed away, so I followed the normal procedure to cremate her. Was that wrong?" It was clear they didn't expect me to speak so directly. They had thought I would break down upon learning the truth, and be easily manipulated. But I wasn't the naive man I had once been. Since waking up, I knew exactly how to handle each step ahead. With a choked voice, I continued, I wanted to donate her organs. Mom, you were there. Why didn't you tell me the truth when you refused? If it was just about a divorce, why wouldn't I have agreed? You deceived Olivia Parker, made her believe your lies, and chose to fake her death. Then you deliberately cremated her, making me the villain who sent his own wife to the crematorium. How cruel can you be? Eleanor Davis stammered. Olivia Parker insisted that you must believe it, so I had to stop the organ donation and tell you the truth. I pulled out my phone. Then what about this? You called me on my way to the crematorium, proving you knew I was going to cremate Olivia Parker. I was too heartbroken to answer, but why didn't you send a message when I got there? Why didn't you tell me the truth then? Instead, you caused a scene and pressed the incineration button yourselves. Eleanor Davis and Chloe Anderson were speechless, but I knew they were confident they had time. They thought they could distract me at the crematorium and still win. But desperation breeds bold moves, and their plan had failed. The scene ended in a standoff. The police took us all into temporary detention pending further investigation. Chapter 18. After a few days of investigation, the police found that I was indeed a simple husband who had been unaware of Olivia Parker's affair. I had never questioned her business trips, social engagements, or checked her phone. Neighbors, friends, and colleagues confirmed that we were a loving couple, with no signs of discord. The home surveillance footage showed no arguments between us. The police couldn't know that I had been reborn based on the evidence. How could such a loving husband kill his wife? Eleanor Davis, Chloe Anderson, and Victor Brooks's statements were full of holes. They had countless opportunities to tell me that Olivia Parker wasn't dead, but they waited until after the cremation. Chloe Anderson and Eleanor Davis had seen Olivia Parker enter the crematorium, yet they remained silent, even pressing the button themselves. They claimed it was unintentional, but who would believe that? Moreover, the entire fake death incident had already been extremely suspicious, so the investigation concluded that I was an innocent, grieving husband. Meanwhile, the other three were charged with attempted murder. 6 months later, they were found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. Eleanor Davis wasn't so fortunate. She died of a heart attack after hearing her sentence. Chloe Anderson's husband divorced her and left with their children, devastated by her actions. Rumor had it that Chloe Anderson attempted suicide multiple times in prison, but failed each time. As for Victor Brooks, he contacted me several times, begging me to visit him in prison. When I ignored him, he started writing letters, pleading with me to raise the child for Olivia Parker's sake. I sent him a letter back, informing him that the child had been sent to an orphanage. I'm no saint, I wrote. I couldn't raise the child of someone who conspired to kill my wife. I then sold the house and used the inheritance Olivia Parker left me to buy a larger, better located property. I kept Olivia Parker's ashes with me, believing that if there is an afterlife, she would see how happy I am now.